Hey everyone, Eric here. Welcome to WDIM News, my weekly podcast where I talk about all things science fiction and pop culture. Today is going to be a very special podcast, so I'm going to do something I hardly ever do on this channel, which is talk about myself. I would love to hear your input on what is going on too, so I hope that you'll comment and let me know what you think. But before I get into all that, I have a lot of fun stuff to get through, which will start with my review of the second episode of the final season of Star Trek Picard, along with some updates in the world of Star Wars and some other quick news bites that I want to talk about. First, let's talk about the second episode of the last season of Star Trek Picard, titled Disengage. I know that last week I did a spoilers and non-spoilers section, but I think this week I'm just going to do spoilers right from the beginning. I mean, it's Monday already, so you've probably seen this episode already. First of all, I liked most of it, but there is something that I don't like that I have talked about already. I do want to preface this by saying that I am not one of those reviewers that have seen the first 6 episodes of the season. I know a lot of people have. I have not. I have only seen 2 episodes, so that is what I have to go with on my review. I don't know what's going to happen with a lot of these characters, so as it stands right now, this is my review. So this might be why this review might be a little bit different than other reviews you've seen out there, because a lot of people know what's going to happen with some of these characters that I don't. So first, let's talk about the things that I liked. The first thing that comes to mind is I'm really appreciating Michelle Hurd's performance as Raffi this season. I see a lot of reviewers out there say that Michelle Hurd is an over actress. I really don't think that that is valid. I've seen her in a lot of other things. The only thing that comes to mind off the cuff is Daredevil, but I know that she's been in a lot of stuff that I've seen her in, and a lot of times she plays like a lawyer and things like this. Very straight-faced and not anything like Raffi. So I don't think that that's valid. I think that, for one, Michelle Hurd is performing these scenes in what's called the volume, which is this large set that has, a green screen behind it. And she's got, a camera in front of her, and she's doing these scenes on the La Serena by herself. She's not even talking to anyone really. And, that's really hard. I mean, that's top floor acting to just hold the whole thing. That's like a one-man play. That's basically what she's doing right there. And I think she's doing a fine job. And then with her scenes on Metalis Prime, I think she's doing a great job too. I love her arc so far. It sounds like that it has something to do with Section 31. I love Section 31. It makes a lot of sense that her character would be a part of Section 31, knowing what we know about her. So I'm really liking Raffi so far, and I think that she might be my biggest surprise of what characters I like. Of all the characters that I thought I would, really appreciate, I think that she comes to mind as one that I really find her arc interesting. I buy, that she's down on her luck. Once again, some people are just like that. I've been there in my life too, where it just seems like you take 1 step forward and 2 steps back, and she's just trying to, make it and trying to do right by the way she sees the best way to go. And I think, that she's unconventional and stuff like that. It makes sense that she's a part of Section 31. Seven, played by Jerry Ryan, is another character that I think is nailing it this season. I love that she, as an officer, is showing a few things. She's showing us a different kind of officer. She's not straight-laced. She doesn't show insubordination in front of the other crew. If you notice that, she's very, sly about what she does, which makes it a little more believable. I think a lot of the critique of the Discovery crew is that they're openly insubordinate and stuff like that. And Seven is not, but she's still showing us a different kind of officer. And she's also showing us, that old, can someone go home again? Can she wanted to be an officer, and now she's got it, and it's not what she expected. And it really, I started to think about, I can't remember the episode of Voyager, but there was an episode of Voyager where it was one of those where Harry Kim thought he figured out how he was going to get the Voyager home in 2 days instead of 20 years, and of course he didn't. But the crew thought that they were going to get back to Earth, and everybody was excited except for Seven, because she didn't know what kind of reception that she would receive when she got to Earth. And this season is almost a continuation of that plot line with her character. And I love it because it really fits, and it really, it fits nice into this new narrative of the season, and it's a nice continuation for her character. So, I really like what she's doing this season, and I look forward to seeing her in future things. Speaking of other characters that I like this episode, let's just say that Worf has entered the chat. I mean, he really did a Leroy Jenkins and just tore up that bar and saved Raffi in that scene. I mean, my note that I wrote for myself when I watched that was not a big surprise, but a fantastic entrance. I mean, he really just really made a name for himself right from the first second he's there. And for just the few seconds that he was in that scene, man, great way for his character to return. And I really look forward to seeing how his arc progresses with Rafi. And him showing up started to make me think a couple of things. For one, did Worf seek out Rafi, in the intelligence community as a favor to Picard? Of course, Worf would know that Rafi served with Picard, not just because he, shows so much respect for Picard, but because he's an intelligence officer, so he knows everything about Rafi and Picard. I'm starting to wonder if that's going to come up in later episodes, that Worf chose to be Rafi's handler because, he has this respect for Picard, and he wanted to make sure that nothing happened to Rafi while she was undertaking this dangerous mission. Another thing that kind of came to mind was, Worf has got to be a very famous Klingon in the universe, on both the Klingon and the Federation side. How does someone that famous become a covert agent? How does Elvis Presley join the FBI? I mean, it's somebody whose face is so synonymous with, what they've done as a officer. How can they be, a covert agent? Maybe that's why he works behind the scenes and works behind a blank computer and a blinking light. But that was something else that came to mind. How can Worf be a covert agent if he's probably one of the most famous Klingons that are alive that aren't like Chancellor of the Klingon Empire? Another character that I really enjoyed for the second time in 2 episodes is Captain Shaw. Todd Stashwick is nailing it as Captain Shaw. He's gobbling up scenery, as a new character standing tall with Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes, characters that they have played for years. And, he's in the room with them and he's doing just fine. I think that Todd Stashwick is doing great. My note about him was that he's the best mean captain since Captain Styles from Undiscovered Country. If you remember, he was the one with the riding crop. Something about him, I feel like there's a lot of Captain Styles and Captain Shaw, and maybe even Captain Jellicoe. I would love if, like, in future episodes, if we learn that, like, Shaw served under Jellicoe at some point. That would mean so much. I mean, it would also tie back to Riker, because Riker didn't get along with Jellicoe, and now Shaw doesn't like Riker either, so he would probably side with Jellicoe in that. I think that would make a lot of sense. So I love Liam Shaw. I hope that he does not get killed off. I think the actor, Todd Stashwick, in an interview stated that he is in all 10 episodes, but he does seem kind of cheeky. Like, he's the kind of actor that would, like, make something up just to, egg on the fans. So I don't know if that's true, if he is going to be in all 10 episodes, if he's going to survive. I hope he does. I think Todd Stashwick is doing a great job. Continuing with characters that I enjoyed, how about Amanda Plummer as Captain Vadic? My note for her was, what if General Chang was batshit crazy? Of course, Amanda Plummer is the daughter of Christopher Plummer, who played General Chang in the movie The Undiscovered Country. I really think that she has a chance to be one of the best Star Trek villains ever, even better than her father. She's definitely channeling his performance in her performance, but adding her own, nuance to it. I talked about it in my breakdown video. You're more than welcome to check that out after you check out this video. Yeah, I think she's playing a very brutal but clever villain, and that's kind of what General Chang was too. So I really dig it. I really like what she's doing. I know that in an interview with Terry Matalas, the showrunner for Star Trek Picard, he said a couple of things about the casting of Amanda Plummer. One was that he thought that they won everything after they cast her, which I 100% agree with, and that none of her takes were alike. No 2 takes that she did as the character were alike, and that during some takes there were, people on set high-fiving and hugging each other like they were so psyched that, she was going to be the villain this season. And I can see it just after, the little bit that we've seen of her. I think that she could be, something really special. I like that it doesn't seem that she is tied specifically to Picard. I mean, she is looking for Jack Crusher. She could be a bounty hunter. I think that was brought up, but it seems like she's willing to go to war with the Federation over a bounty. That seems not to add up. One bounty wouldn't seem to be worth that much. She does say that he's worth a lot, but I can't see one human being worth going to war with the Federation over. If she destroys the Titan, the Federation is going to look for her until they find her. I mean, they're not just going to be like, oh, there's another ship that's lost. The Titan is an important ship for the Federation. So that's, she's really going after a lot for one bounty. So I think that there's a greater story there. but it doesn't seem that she's directly tied to Captain Picard or necessarily even the Next Generation cast as a whole. So I appreciate that, and I'm really looking forward to what we get out of her character. One character that unfortunately we won't be seeing again is Aaron Stanford as the Ferengi Sneed. I really liked him as well, starting with his look. If you noticed, he looked a lot more like the Ferengi from the Next Generation era and not from the, the Deep Space Nine, and especially not from Discovery. I think we can all just forget that Ferengi on Discovery even exists. His version of a Ferengi, had a fur pelt on or had a fur coat on, kind of like the fur pelts that the Ferengi wore in The Last Outpost, that episode of the Next Generation. And he had tattoos, which a lot of the Ferengi had in the Next Generation. Especially, I think all the Daemons had a tattoo on their face. So maybe Sneed was a Daemon at some point. But I really liked his character. I immediately picked up, of course, that Aaron Stanford starred in the series 12 Monkeys, which Terry Matalas also created based on the film 12 Monkeys. But, after watching it a couple times, I also remembered that Aaron Stanford played a part in the X-Men movies. He was the villain Pyro, which starred Patrick Stewart as Professor X. So even though Aaron Stanford didn't share any scenes with Patrick Stewart, or Sir Patrick Stewart, I should say, in this episode, there's a connection there as well, which I thought was kind of cool. But I thought he did a great job. Too bad he had to die, but, he's a good actor, so he was in heavy prosthetics. Maybe he could come back as something else. That's another thing for Todd Stashwick. I hope if his character gets killed off, Todd Stashwick gets to come back, as a Klingon or as something else in the future, because both these two actors, I think, are really great, and I hope they continue on in Star Trek. And then my final positive note about the second episode of the final season of Star Trek Picard is the look between Beverly Crusher and Jean-Luc Picard at the end of the episode. I know you know what I'm talking about. I mean, talk about 20 years of emotion in 10 seconds of shared space. They really just brought the house down, especially Gates McFadden. She's doing great so far. I'm going to talk about Beverly Crusher a little bit more as the review goes on, but Gates McFadden is doing a fantastic job as an actress. The vulnerability she showed in that scene, all we saw from her so far this season was strength, and then we see the other side right there. So, for an actor to bring strength and vulnerability to a character in such a short amount of time and in such a small amount of screen time, that's something. And, she deserves a golf clap for that, for sure. I know that Terry Matalas said that she was integral in the development of Beverly Crusher this season, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more too. But so far, I like the way she is acting as the character. But unfortunately, that will also lead into things that I didn't like about the second episode. And this is kind of a holdover from the first episode, that so far I just don't recognize Beverly Crusher. And the way the season is going, it's not helping me to do that. So as I mentioned last week, the two possibilities for Beverly Crusher to have had Jack Crusher is during the year that she was not on the Next Generation or after the film Nemesis. Now, where this first causes an issue is the actor that is playing Jack Crusher, Ed Speleers, is in his 30s. So that would line up to the character that he's playing. That would mean that, yes, Beverly did have Jack in the year that she was gone during the run of the Next Generation. But that really doesn't match the character at all, especially when you consider that of all the characters we know, she's the one that was raising a child already on the Enterprise. So why would she raise Wesley and send Jack somewhere else? So that really doesn't make sense. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that this isn't the case and that Beverly Crusher had Jack after the film Nemesis, which means that Ed Speleers is playing a character in his early 20s, possibly, a decade younger than the actor actually is. So if that is the case, that would mean that this is the decision-making of Beverly Crusher, that she wants to, join this Doctors Without Borders thing, leave her Starfleet career behind, and basically give of herself completely to anybody that needs it, seeking out people that are in desperate need, maybe war-torn areas, people that have, infectious diseases. She wants to go help these people and have a young child too, and bring a baby along with her. What character would do that? That doesn't make any sense. And besides that, she wants to not tell the father about the child, as well as all these other characters that we know that are like a family to her. I know that Terry Matalas has said that her actions will make sense and that she worked and that Gates McFadden worked on the character with him. Like I said, Gates McFadden is doing a great job acting the lines. She's doing what is being asked of her. So I have nothing against Gates McFadden, but the character itself, I just don't recognize. And Jack Crusher, I'm not a huge fan of so far either. It's hard to not see David Marcus, when you look at Jack Crusher. I don't even have to point out all the similarities, his mother being a doctor, his father not knowing about, there's already all these similarities to the Wrath of Khan in the season of Picard. To have this David and Carol Marcus tag along, it seems like a lot. And then the character himself, his intro scene was okay. I mean, he's this, Captain Kirk maybe style, like talks a lot, scoundrel, kind of guy. I'm okay with that. But that breakout scene from the brig was a joke. He's got something on his wrist that takes down the force field, and then he takes out the security guy. The guy's got one job. There's one guy in the brig, and he can't do that. Come on. Like, that whole scene was a joke to me. And I know that it had to push the story forward, but there's got to be a better way. I mean, they've done jailbreaks more than once in Star Trek before. So that scene was definitely, for me, the worst scene of the 2 episodes was that breakout. That was just a joke. But again, I'm not one of these reviewers that have seen the 6 episodes. So I have to go on what I know so far. And this is what I know so far, and this is what I feel. But let me know if you have seen the first 6 episodes. I don't really want to know your opinion because obviously it's going to be different than mine. But if you haven't and you're just like me and you've only seen the 2, let me know what you think. Am I crazy? Does this make sense to you? Or am I just being, overly critical? But let me know. I don't think I'm being overly critical. I think that I can look at Star Trek, as a fan and as a critic. And as a fan, I love the acting. I love the character arcs so far on most of the characters. The new characters especially. I don't know if there's a new character yet that's been introduced that I don't like. So thumbs up for that. But if you're going to have old characters come back, you better have a good reason why they're a lot different. And so far, I just haven't heard it. So just let me know in the comments, what do you think of the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard so far? Next, I'm going to quickly run through some other bits of news. If you can hear, there's a bird outside that obviously has some strong feelings about the 2nd episode of the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard. Hopefully you can't hear him, but if you can, I apologize. But anyway, first I want to talk about Star Wars, not Star Trek. So this week there was a report from the webzine THR that we should expect some major Star Wars plans to be announced in April of this year. So what THR seems to think that this will be is, first, they believe that Star Wars will be releasing details about an upcoming film. Of course, we haven't had a film in quite some time. Rise of Skywalker was the last one, I believe, and that was not well received by fans or critics. So whatever film they do this time will not be continuing the Skywalker saga. I believe that is over. But we will hear news about a new Star Wars film, which is kind of exciting. Of course, we don't know anything about a Star Trek film yet. So Paramount, if you're listening, March would be a good time to announce your plans on the future of Star Trek, to kind of get a heads up on Star Wars. But besides a possible film, it sounds like we also might get firm release dates for the series Skeleton Crew and Ahsoka. Ahsoka is, of course, based on Ahsoka Tano, the character that was first introduced in the animated series Clone Wars and also featured in Rebels and The Mandalorian. She is played by Rosario Dawson. It looks like Hayden Christensen will also appear in the series as Anakin Skywalker. He just appeared in the Han Solo series. We will also see the live debut of other animated characters from the Rebels series, those being Sabine Wren and Ezra Bridger, if you are a fan of that. And besides the actors that I already mentioned, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is going to be involved. I'm a big fan of hers, along with Ray Stevenson. I'm also a big fan of his. So this could be really good. Dave Filoni is writing the series. He created the character, and he is responsible for a lot of the good stuff that we've seen in Star Wars the past few years. So I'm excited for the series. I've never been a huge fan of the Star Wars animated series, so I don't know a ton about these characters, but Rosario Dawson does seem to really have an affinity for the character, and it seems to be in good hands, so I look forward to it. Along with this series, the Skeleton Crew is one we don't know a ton about. Interestingly, it's supposed to take place right after Return of the Jedi, which is during the same time as The Mandalorian. So we might see some crossover again with these characters. The only actor I believe that has been confirmed is Jude Law, who is really good. I like him and the things that he's done. I'm surprised that he hasn't been in Star Trek yet, but I guess Star Wars got him first. And this series is described as a coming of age story, similar to that of the 80s films like Goonies. So I guess there will be teenage actors involved in this show. But these two series probably will be pretty good, and I will be watching them. Besides this, we could also hear about future seasons of The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and Andor. I like Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. I'm not a fan of Andor. Andor just started filming, so we wouldn't see that series this year. Definitely not until 2024. The third season of The Mandalorian actually starts airing this week on Disney Plus. It starts on the 1st of March. So I will definitely be watching that, and I'll be talking about that on my podcast next week. The Book of Boba Fett is another show that we should get an update on. Originally, that was supposed to, I think, only be one season, but we might get another season of that. But we should be getting updates on all things Star Wars. Again, I'm still waiting for that Star Trek update. Usually in January we get them. January passed, and now February is almost over. We don't know what's going on with Star Trek, but looks like in April we'll know what's going on with Star Wars. So let me know, are you a fan of Star Wars? Do you just like the old stuff? And are you excited about any of these new series that I discussed or a new possible movie in the future? Then I want to briefly talk about the reactions to Ant-Man and the Wasp 3 Quantumania. I did a review of that movie last week. In my review, I said that, I liked it. I didn't love it, but I definitely didn't think it was as bad as everybody was making it out to be, especially reviewers online. I know that on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a rating that's around the Eternals, another MCU rating, which is like 47, 48%. I don't think it's in that area at all. I was not a fan of the Eternals. I would say that 47, 48% is probably correct for that. And I actually thought about this, and I would say that I enjoyed Ant-Man and the Wasp 3 about as much as I enjoyed Shang-Chi, the Legend of the Ten Rings. So I would put it right around there. And Shang-Chi has a rating in the 90s. I think that, I don't know if I would put Ant-Man in the high 90s, maybe in the low 90s, maybe in the high 80s. I think a lot of the criticism is about Kang, being nerfed and being beaten and then coming back as a main villain. I just don't think that it's valid. I think that it's a totally different version of the character. We were already introduced to a different version of the character in Loki, so I don't know why it's so hard for people to see that. I know a lot of criticism has also come towards the character MODOK. I thought he was really funny. I thought it was great. I didn't see a problem with it. I like Patton Oswalt's version. I like Corey Stoll's version. I don't see a problem with MODOK at all. I didn't see a problem. People said that there was too much CGI. I don't know what people expected. It was in the quantum realm. Like, what, they couldn't even make this movie like 5 years ago because it's so crazy, But let me know in the comments, what do you think of the reactions of Ant-Man and the Wasp? Do you think it's valid? Like I said, I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because I think it's kind of silly, but sometimes these reactions, I think one reviewer says something and then like 10 latch on to that, and then 10 of their friends latch on, and and I think it kind of like balloons like that because some of the criticism, it doesn't even sound like these people watched the same movie that I did. But let me know in the comments, did you see Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania? I know that there was a huge drop-off from the first week to the second week, that the film Cocaine Bear beat it the second week it was out, which is, not a great sign. But we'll see I think that it'll come back, but we'll see. And now on to a piece of news that I'm really excited about, which is that HBO Max ordered a prequel to the It series and titled it Welcome to Derry. This will be done by the same director that did the recent It films. I love those films, and I expected to not like those films because I really loved the original It series with Tim Curry when it came out. I was the age of the kids in the story when it came out, so I really associated with them. And I was really into Stephen King when that came out, so I really loved it. And I was not expecting to like the new movies, and I really did. I liked the first one and the second one, even though it was, new cast. I liked both the young cast and the old cast, so I really liked it. I thought it was great, and I'm really excited for this. I thought it was scary. I really hope they get Bill Skarsgård back to do Pennywise. I don't see how they do this story without him, unless they do maybe how Pennywise was created, and it's a different actor or something. But I really hope they get the same actor back. I think that that's maybe a make it or break it. If they don't get Bill Skarsgård back. I think it might be difficult, but I think if they get Bill Skarsgård back, this thing is a hit from the first episode. So hopefully they get him. They're HBO Max is riding high with The Last of Us right now, so they've got the money. So hopefully they get Bill Skarsgård and make a really good series. But let me know, are you a fan of the It series? Did you see the new movies? And are you excited for a new prequel series on HBO Max? Speaking of HBO Max, or more specifically Warner Brothers has announced that they are going to do more Lord of the Rings movies. Now, this is kind of a crazy story, so stay tuned here and listen to everything I have to say, because there's a lot of ins and outs here. For one, these movies won't be a reboot or tread on the ground of the 6 movies that have already come out, those being the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies. These films will also be separate from the Amazon series, and if you remember, Amazon paid $250 million for the rights to tell those stories, and now it looks like we're going to have like War of the Rings, like we're going to have competing Lord of the Rings stories on Amazon and being released through Warner Brothers. So this could get kind of crazy. And remember, I coined the phrase War of the Rings. I didn't see it anywhere before I said that. I'm kidding, of course. But Amazon really, I think, cannot be happy about this, because they probably thought that this was not going to happen when they spent so much money to get these stories. And now we're going to have Lord of the Rings movies come out. So the first one that we know about is an anime that's going to be released in 2024, and it's going to have to do with events that occurred almost 200 years before the events of Lord of the Rings. And it's going to be called The War of the Rohirrim, and tell the tale of the House of Helm Hammerhand and the legendary King of Rohan. So that should be cool. I mean, I've never been a huge fan of anime, but I'll probably watch it because it's Lord of the Rings. But the most interesting thing, I think, here is that now Amazon has to compete with Warner Brothers. And I know that not a ton of critics liked The Rings of Power. So now Amazon has to deal with not only the backlash from fans and critics, but now they have a competitor at Warner Brothers making Lord of the Rings movies. So Amazon has to be livid about this news. So it'll be really interesting how they proceed with The Rings of Power going forward. But let me know what you think of this news. Are you a fan of Tolkien? Are you going to watch these new movies? What do you think of Rings of Power? Are you a fan? Are you not a fan? And will you be watching in the future? And then my final bit of news is kind of fun news, and that is that Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally have joined the cast of The Umbrella Academy. The Umbrella Academy is a series that I really enjoy. A little bit of trivia about this channel. One of my first videos was about The Umbrella Academy, so it'll always have a special place in my heart. And I just love Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally to death. Megan Mullally is known from her time on Will and Grace, and Nick Offerman is known for his time on Parks and Recreation. And of course, they played characters together on Parks and Recreation, and they were just hilarious. They were just fun and quirky. And that is what Umbrella Academy is. It's a fun and quirky show. So they will fit right in. Honestly, I think they will fill the void that's been missing since the characters Cha-Cha and Hazel left. I think that kind of camaraderie that they had in the first season and, what they provided for the show, I think Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally will kind of provide that now. And even from, the first hit, their character names are both Gene. They're married and their names are Dr. Gene Thibodeau and Dr. Gene Thibodeau. One is named Gene and one Jean. I mean, just from the start, they're already hilarious. So I can't wait to see, what happens here. I think David Cross was also cast in the Umbrella Academy for their final season. So I'm really looking forward to that series. It probably won't air in 2023. It's probably going to air in 2024, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to who these actors will be playing. But let me know in the comments, what do you think of this news? Do you watch the Umbrella Academy? Do you care about it at all? And will you watch it now that you know that these great actors are going to be playing a married couple once again on this show? So now I want to talk about what is going on with my channel right now and why I'm kind of thinking about making some changes. So this really started about a year ago when this channel was doing really relatively well. I was definitely on a positive trend. Every month was either better than the month before, or if I dropped a little, it went back up in the next month. But about 6 months ago, I noticed a noticeable drop. And at the time, I kind of attributed it to the fact that Star Trek wasn't making a lot of new content. If you do follow this channel, you know that my channel predominantly does follow Star Trek. There's probably 6 to 10 Star Trek videos for every video of something else on my channel. And that's just kind of been the way that I've done since I started the channel, because I started to find some success with Star Trek, and I kind of tried to build off that and try to get better and gain more viewers and gain more whatever, try and become a better YouTuber in this genre, so to speak, because YouTube really wants you to concentrate on one thing, something that, if you're a creator, I think it's really hard to concentrate on one thing. Maybe a lot of people don't think about that, but as a creator, I kind of started out as a musician. So for me, talking about one thing is like playing only one album or playing only one song. You wanna continue to evolve, you want to continue to get better, and you want to continue to prove yourself that you can succeed, that you're not a one-trick pony, that you didn't just make one video that went popular and the rest of your stuff is crap. So that was kind of my thinking with the channel, and it's been that way since day one. But my Star Trek videos recently have really not been doing great. Along with my Star Trek videos, I'm always doing videos about other things. And starting 3 months ago, I started doing videos about a new series coming out on Amazon Prime based on the Fallout video games. Now, I am a huge fan of the Fallout video games. They're my favorite video game series. So it's very easy for me to talk about Fallout. So about 3 months ago, I do a video on Fallout, the new Fallout series. And it's really weird because at first it didn't do well. Literally for the first 28 days, it got under 6,000 views, which for my channel is like good, but not great. Usually in the first month, I want to have at least 10,000. Like that's when any video that I put out, I really want to get 10,000 views. Anything less than 10,000, it's kind of something that I got to look at and see, what can I do to do better? If I see something that's 10,000 or more, it's like, okay, what am I doing? I got to keep doing that right. Anyway, so for the first 28 days, I hit like 6,000 views. The next day, I jumped from under 6,000 views to over 10,000 views. That's right. I got 4,000 views in one day. And that video now sits at over 320,000 views. I don't even know what's going to be at when this video that I'm making right now is released. So that means even with the first month of the video being released, not really being successful, it turned out to be one of my most successful videos ever. And if it had been successful that first month, it definitely would have been my most successful video ever. So I thought that was great, but yeah, it could have been an anomaly. So about a month and a half later, I did another video because another bit of news came out about the series, and boom, that video took off quicker than the one before. And now I think sits over 120,000, but it's still going well. So I would expect it to maybe even hit 200,000 views. And then this past week, I released 4 videos about Star Trek, and none of them do really that crazy well. And then I do one video again about Fallout, and it immediately takes off. I mean, now when I'm recording this video, it's in the 6,000s, I think. And it's in the 7,000s. So who knows what it's going to be at when this video is released. So, I don't have to be the smartest man in the world to see that my Fallout videos are doing a lot better than my Star Trek videos. And I want to add some more context to this, that I'm not just going for views. That's all I care about. For one, making a breakdown video of an episode of Star Trek takes me a long time. So I always kind of tell people who ask me, how long does it take you to do a YouTube video? For every hour of video you see, it takes me about a half hour of work to do. So if you see an 8-minute video, that took me 4 hours to do. If you see a 12-minute video, that took me 6 hours to do. So, and the breakdown videos are definitely on the heavy side of that. Like, I will more often go over that time than under that time because I have to do so much research, because Star Trek fans, literally, if you get one little minute piece of information wrong, you will get 100 comments about it. So I do a lot of work and I still get stuff wrong because guess what? I'm human, I'm not data. I'm a human being. So even with all this work, I still get stuff wrong. And these videos, again, I'm only trying to get 10,000 views with them, and I might hit it. I'm thinking I might get there with this last one that I did, but the first week I'm not going to hit 10,000 views. I probably spend as much time on my news videos that I do my breakdown videos, but those do seem to have a higher ceiling. Like I have released Star Trek news videos that do get over 100,000 hits, But for the most part, especially recently, like I released a couple the past few weeks that I don't think have even hit 5,000 views. And I would be remiss if I did not discuss the big business aspect of this conundrum, which is Paramount, and how they are, without a doubt, the worst company to work with if you're trying to be a YouTube creator. I know I'm not the first creator to have brought this up, but I get a copyright strike literally on every video breakdown that I do of an episode of Star Trek. I have to appeal it, and then they let it go. So then they remove the copyright strike. I don't know why they do this. Half of me thinks that they do this just because when they have the copyright strike on, they are able to access my analytics, the analytics on that video. So part of me thinks that they just want to see how the video does, and then they give it back to me. But just to give you a little bit of, YouTube background here, when a company does that, the money that you're supposed to get for that video goes into an escrow account. So when that copyright strike gets removed, that money doesn't automatically go back to you. It sits in this account for up to a month. So this happened to me a bunch last year, and I didn't even realize it, that the money for my videos was actually spread out over months because of these copyright strikes. I mean, imagine a whole 10-week season of copyright strikes. And, sometimes it took a week for them to drop it. Sometimes it took a month. Sometimes it took 2 weeks. And it's every single breakdown I do, I get the same copyright strike. I literally respond back with like the same, I do the same process. I have to go the same rigmarole. And then I get the money eventually. And it's just so silly. And it's silly because I don't have to deal with it with any other company. And again, I know I'm not the only YouTuber that has said this. So Paramount is famous for being like this with their content. And it's really silly because all I'm doing is being, another speaker for their property, for Star Trek. And I'm a mostly positive voice in it. From time to time I give a critique. I mean, I think critically. I'm not one of these sycophantic Star Trek fans that think anything that Star Trek puts out is a unicorn. I can look at Star Trek and say, is it good or is it bad? But for the most part, I mean, you can even hear in my review of the second episode of Picard earlier, it was really hard for me to talk about the bad stuff. I talked about a lot of good stuff first, but again, every breakdown that I do, I put so much work in. I have to deal with Paramount, and then I have to deal with it not doing as well as I would like. And then there's this last thing that I wasn't going to bring up, but hey, if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to be completely honest with you. And another problem I have is the Star Trek community, and I do not mean the fans. So I don't mean you. I'm 99% sure that I don't mean you watching this video right now. Specifically, I mean some of the other creators that I have come into contact with online. 99% have been disappointments. There are some exceptions. I mean, obviously Nick from Sci Fanatics, him and I get along really well. And there are other creators out there definitely that I respect. But for the most part, I have been very disappointed with kind of the support I've had from, some other people. Jessie Gender is another creator that has supported me in the past when she didn't have to. And she's a larger, me and Nick obviously are around the same, level of popularity, level of subscribers. So it's easy for us to support each other because we're on the same path. But when you're talking about bigger channels that I have come into contact with, and I've talked to channels that have millions and millions of subscribers, I've talked to those creators and worked with them. Jessie Gender is really the only one that hasn't turned out to be a disappointment. But it's hard. And then I also have to deal with the comments. And again, the comments that I'm getting are not from what I would consider Star Trek fans, because for one, they're never talking about me. They're hardly ever do I get a comment about, the way that what I say or how I say it. I mean, obviously, for the most part, especially on my breakdown videos, I don't show my face, so I don't have to worry about all the crazy stuff that people have to do when they actually show their faces. But, most of the comments are just so asinine. It's like people just seek out Star Trek videos to leave these comments like, oh, New Trek sucks. This is woke garbage. I mean, I really think like, why are you clicking on my video if you think this? I mean, I've never been one of these people, with the thumbnails with the big eyes, and that what you're getting into when you click on that video. Like this is going to bash Star Trek. My videos don't look like that, so I don't know why these people click on these videos unless it's just to bash Star Trek. And I have that on every single one. So these are things that I have to deal with every video that I put out for Star Trek. And it's something I know even going into it. And to do this without the support, of a bigger community, without the support of the company that's putting out this property, without, YouTube really pushing these videos, it's really difficult. It's really getting difficult to continue on making this content. Because I do have a real job. I have a 40-hour-a-week job, and I work in analytics. And so I can't help but look at the numbers. I think that really working in analytics has helped me on YouTube because it allows me to work on the things that are important and not waste time on things that won't help me. And that's where I am right now with this channel. I want to work on things that will help build this channel and not things that will hurt me and not things that are a waste of time. This podcast is a new thing that I've done. I'm not sure so far. It's hard to say how popular or how successful this podcast has been because this is only my 8th podcast. I'll probably give it about 6 months before I decide yes or no to continue. But I will say I enjoy it. And I will also say that it takes way less time for me to put these videos together than it does my others. Obviously I'm not editing together video clips. I am speaking off the cuff. It's a lot easier to do these. I can do an hour of content in a podcast, and it takes me the same amount of time to do that as it would an 8-minute video based on Star Trek. So in that regard, it makes more sense for me to just do podcasts and news about other stuff. But, again, I would really like to know what you think about this. This is not me fishing for clicks. A podcast like this isn't going to go viral anyway, so it doesn't matter how many comments I get. But this is me really just asking you person to person, what do you think of me and this channel? Do you come here for news? Do you come here for Star Trek breakdowns? Do you come here just when a thumbnail catches your eye? Are you one of my new fans that have, reached out to me since I started doing Fallout? And would you just like me to do some more stuff on Fallout? I could totally do that. As we ramp up to the Fallout series being released, I could do more stuff about that. I could do more stuff about other things. So just let me know. I would really appreciate it if you could just, take a few minutes and let me know your opinion on this channel and how you think I should proceed. Well, that's all I have this time. Thank you very much for joining me. Again, this is kind of a special podcast, so I do appreciate you sticking around to the end, and hopefully you will take some time and let me know how you feel. Either way, I thank you for clicking on this and watching me, and I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?